Good morning and welcome to A to Z for Moms podcast. I'm Jody Martin and today is Teaching Tuesday. So we are going to be talking about homeschool insights and some educational guidance. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, we have our weekly lineup is as follows. Motivational Monday, kick off the week with inspiration and self-help. Teaching Tuesdays, homeschooling insights and education guidance. Whip It Wednesday, culinary adventures and cooking tips. Explore the culinary world and improve your cooking skills. Parenting perspectives on Thursday. You can get advice, stories, and support for parenting. Food Storage Friday, learn about food storage and preparedness. And Money Magic for Moms on Saturday, discover entrepreneurship and ways to make money from home. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, need clarification or more information, you can email me at podcast@a2z4moms.com. All right, without further ado, let's kick off this glorious Tuesday. Today, we are going to be talking about life of homeschooling, the life of homeschooling. So each podcast, we go over 4 topics or 4 talking points. And today, our 4 are going to be, number 1, designing a homeschool routine. Number 2, selecting and adapting curriculum to fit your family. Number 3, activities and adventures for learning. And number 4, pros and cons of homeschooling. And in each of these categories, I'm going to give you some overall information, and then I'll give you also the insights of what we do for our family and what we found works for us. So not only some general information, but practical information that we've actually used and applied. So, number 1, designing a homeschool routine. So why is that important? That is one of the key things. If you are, now all this information works whether you're already doing homeschooling or if you're considering it and you have a lot of questions. I know for me, homeschooling was something that intimidated and overwhelmed me for a lot of years. I thought there was no way I could possibly do this. And, but once we started, I absolutely love it. I homeschool my youngest 2 daughters, and honestly, I don't foresee them ever going back to public school. Especially as we see more and more crazy things happening within the school system, both locally and nationally. Every time something happens, I'm like, yep, good choice. Good choice. They're not going back. So one of the most important things you need to remember and to be able to do is have a routine. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't be flexible, because that's also one of the amazing joys of having homeschool is the flexibility, right? But you still need to have a routine. So what I'm talking about here is some structure and predictability. Having a routine will help you stay on task with your curriculum, with your lessons, to make sure that your children are learning what they need to learn on schedule, basically, within the school year and their grade and everything like that. It also helps your kids know what to expect day by day. And that has so many valuable things. So time management. When you have a really good routine, you're managing your time. Now, I will tell you, with us, we are done with our homeschool, all of our schooling for the day, generally long before lunchtime, depending on my girls and how motivated they are, and sometimes how big the lesson is that day. Some lessons take more time than others. But generally, we are done, I would sometimes even before 10 or 11 in the morning. We usually start around 8 o'clock. And I mean, there's been times that they get all their workbooks, they get all their lessons done in a half hour, 45 minutes, and they're done. And I love that, because if you think about it, even when your kids are going to public school, and I have 6 kids. These are my youngest 2. So my oldest 4 have gone to public school. My youngest 2, Addie, is currently in 6th grade, and she went to public school up until second grade. And Bella's my youngest, and she went to preschool, public school, but she didn't do kindergarten or anything like that. And there's one thing that has bothered me for years and years was how much busy work that the kids would do. And they'd come home from school and you'd be like, oh, what'd you learn today? I don't know. Well, what'd you do? Tell me about your day. Well, we did this. There was a kid and teacher couldn't get them to listen and la la la. And I started to realize, and if you ever go into the class and volunteer, there is a lot of wasted time. And when you have, I mean, it just comes with the territory. I'm not knocking teachers. I've been a teacher, so I get that. There's a lot of wasted time getting everybody to listen, getting everybody on the same page. And when you have a group of 20, 30, 40 students, you have to teach and make sure that everybody's going together. You don't want to leave, just because two kids are really smart and grasping it so quick, you don't go at their pace and leave everybody else behind. And meanwhile, when you match the speed of the students who are struggling more, you have the kids who grasp it, they're twiddling their thumbs. And so there's a lot of wasted time. And when you're homeschooling, that eliminates that, because you have your kids and you're teaching at their pace. If they need longer to learn the lesson, they get that time. If they get it super quick, then they can move on and they're not held within these boundaries. So your time management comes really, I found we have so much more time and we're still covering what is needed. Excuse me. Consistency and productivity. So with having a regular routine, again, you're building that consistency for your kids. You're being productive. You're keeping them on task, and you're setting some good daily habits. It also gives them a balanced learning. So when you have a routine, and I'll talk about this in a minute when I go over our family's homeschool routine, but you can have this balanced learning, so it's not like you're always only ever doing one thing. If you let your kids determine what you're going to learn every single day, well, they might only ever want to learn about science, or they may only ever want to learn about art or history or what. And that's great, and any learning is great, but they need to have a balanced education. They still, as much as they may hate math or hate science or hate history or whatever it is, they still need to learn it, and they need to have some fundamentals. So having that routine will help give that balance of learning. Also, the independence and personal responsibility. So what we found with our routine is my girls, they learn what we're doing on specific days, and they don't need me standing over them telling them everything that they do, because they know these are the lessons. And we have a calendar, which again, I'll talk about that in a minute. But because they know what the routine is, they can start without me, and they can go through, or if I'm sick, or if I'm not home, or if I have an appointment to go to, or something like that, they know what's expected of them. They know what is on the agenda for that day and the routine, and they take that personal responsibility for their own learning, and they know what they need to do. So some ways that you can design your own homeschool routine. This is we've talked about kind of the importances of the reasons to have a good routine. But when you're starting out, let me get some hot chocolate here. I have had horrible allergies the last couple days. Let's see if I can clear my throat and my nose. When you're designing your homeschool routine, some of the things you want to keep in mind is you want to have clear goals. So what helped me is having goals when I got their curriculum, which we'll talk about in a minute. When I got the curriculum, I broke it down as to where do we need to be each week. Now, I did weekly instead of daily, and I'll tell you, you'll understand here when you learn about our routine. So I would figure out, okay, what do we need to do weekly? We need to learn these certain things. So these were our weekly goals. We're going to do this, 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 this. So when you have your weekly goals, or even if it is a monthly goal of we're going to read this book as a family this month, and that is your monthly goal. But when you have those goals, you know where you're working towards, and it makes it easier to schedule and create a routine to incorporate that goal. If you're saying we're going to read this book as a family for, this month, then you need to do 30 minutes of reading together every single day in order to achieve that goal. Also keep in mind, when is your child's peak learning time? Traditionally, most people learn best in the morning. And even if you're not a morning person, I know some like to sleep in and some get up early. Traditionally, though, people are more productive first thing in the morning. So that, for us, that's what we found, and that's why we get our homeschool done. By lunchtime, we're done. We can have lunch, and the rest of the day is ours. Whether we want to go play with friends or do some fun activities, take a nap, do some projects, whatever it is, the rest of the day is ours. And that is great to be able to work around your child's productivity, their peak learning time. Typically right after lunch is going to be the lowest because after you eat, you're tired, sluggish, and all that. I hate it when I was a high school teacher. Every single year, my class that was right after lunch was the slowest, deadest class every time. And I would almost rather have a break and have my prep period right after lunch for that reason, because any other class, the students were active, they were engaged and all this, and then they would come back after lunch, and the class that was after lunch was like, they were all half asleep, and it was hard to just, they were done. They had lunch and their body was just recovering, and so consider that your child's peak learning times. A visual schedule. So that's what helps me. We have a calendar on our wall, and for the last two years up until this year, I would just buy those desktop calendars. So they're the huge ones, right? They're like 2 feet by, I don't know, 18 inches or something. And it's those big ones that you see like in an office, a professional desk. I would get one of those calendars, and it's paper, so you rip off each month. It's on its own sheet. And we'd hang it on the wall, and then that's where I would do our routine. And I would write in the calendar what we were doing each day and each week and the lessons. And then I'd rip it off at the end of the month, and I'd pencil in or write in the next one. And sometimes if I knew at the first of the school year, okay, this is what we need to do to be on track, I would write it in the calendar every page. And so I didn't have to do as much of that each month. It was all done for me at the first of the year. So again, a visual reference, once the kids are able to read, that they can go and they can look at and see, okay, this is what we're doing today. It gives them that personal accountability and that independence. Involve them in the planning. That is something that's so vital. You want to have a good routine, get your kids involved. That is something we gave our girls. Oh, really quick. Sorry. Let me rewind. This year, what I did different, instead of that rip-off calendar, I found at Ross, because I absolutely love Ross, a chalkboard calendar, and it actually came with, and then I was able to buy more, chalk pencils. So like colored pencils, but they're chalk. And I love it. It's so wonderful. Because it has my whole month, it has notes, it has upcoming stuff, and then it has a standard week at the bottom. So we have our standard week filled in with everything that we do each day, every week that stays the same. And then in the month part, I redo that every month, and I write specific things if there's specific outings or whatever, or what the week is of the lessons that we're doing. So that's what we did different this year, that calendar instead of the tear-off desktop one. But I mean, you can do whatever. Like I said, I used those desktop ones for years and I loved them. Okay, so involving your kids in, now we'll jump back to where I was, involving them in the planning. We gave our girls the option at the first of the year. We said, do you want to do, with this workbook, which we'll talk about in the curriculum section of today's podcast, but our workbook has basically a worksheet every single day for 5 days of the week. So they have their weekly workbook lessons, and there's 5 pages each week. And so I asked them, I said, do you want to do 1 page a day? And then you're doing school for all 5 days. Or do you want to do all 5 pages on Monday And that's our Math Monday. I have a puppy dog robbing the trash can over here. Hey, go away. Little sneak. So we gave them the option of, do you want to focus a little bit on all subjects every single day, or do you want to have specific days for one subject? And they chose to do specific days for one subject. That was there. And again, that's involving them. And we talked about the pros and cons. We're like, well, if we do this, we can do it this way. If we do it this, and we went over all the options and got what worked for them. And then and we do an all or nothing. So it's not one kid does it one way and the other does it another way. We do it all together. And so we discussed it. We did this before school started, so we had discussed it for a while until everybody had come to a consensus of this is what we want to do and all that. So we were all on the same page. Be realistic. So with your routine, set realistic expectations. I mean, don't be, if your kids like to sleep in and they're struggling to get up, don't be like, yeah, we're going to start school every morning at 7 o'clock. Okay. That's part of the nice things about homeschooling is let them sleep in and start school at 8, start school at 9, whatever. Don't let them sleep in all day necessarily, but start those good habits. And it's okay to be realistic and to know what they're capable of and what's going to actually work in your family. Maybe you're not a morning person, and so you're like, okay, I would like to sleep in until 8 or 9 o'clock. So we're going to start school at 9 o'clock. Every day is 9 o'clock. That's fine. Be realistic though. You don't want to give yourself stress and burnout and stuff like that, having too high of expectations. And allow for flexibility. So, I mean, that is one of the best things about homeschooling is the flexibility. If somebody gets sick, if you go on a trip, if there's, a family comes to visit you, whatever it is, you have that flexibility, and that's okay. You can adjust your schedule. You can double up on lessons or take a break, and you still have that flexibility, and then just get right back on schedule. Having your good routine though is really going to help your homeschooling go smoother, stay on task, and it's going to help your kids in so many ways. So our routine, let me tell you about ours. Excuse me. Our family routine, this is how we do it. My girls, I'm an early bird, so I'm up between 5 and 6 a.m. and that's just me. I get up early. So I'm up, I start my day and whatnot. Kids are usually up usually about 7:30. If Addie's not up already, I will holler at them because their bedroom's downstairs. So I'll holler downstairs, make sure they're getting up and moving. Typically by 8 o'clock, they are up and between 8 and 8:30, they're ready to start school. So their routine that we've established with them through training and consistency is they get up and they do their self-care first. So getting up, go into the bathroom, take a shower, brush your teeth, wash your hair, brush your hair, put on clean clothes, make your bed, the self-care stuff. So that comes first. So they get up, they do their self-care. Then they usually come in and do school. Now, depending on the day, it's really their option if they want to do chores first or school first. Their chores, they have daily chores, and their chores really only take them about 15 minutes. So the chores, unless it's a special chore, a Saturday or something like that, they have that choice. They can do their chore after their schoolwork or before their schoolwork. That's up to them. Then, every day, they usually choose to do this in the afternoon, after lunchtime, is they'll practice their music. So violin, piano, anything like that. So that's kind of the daily stuff. Now, this is the specific homeschool things. So Mondays, we do math. So they have their workbook. They do their math. And then Monday, they are also in tumbling, tap, and ballet each week. And that's their PE class. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit too. So Monday is math and PE. Tuesday is our language arts and social studies. Wednesday is science. Thursday is home economics and PE. They have another class. It's Thursday's their ballet. And then Friday is our fun day. So Friday, we don't schedule, they don't have any official curriculum stuff scheduled for school on Friday. Friday is the fun day. That's the day that we take a fun project. Hush. Puppy whine in here. He's worse than the kids, I swear. Friday is our fun day. That's when we take some of these fun little activities, or if we have a science kit, or we want to do an experiment or a project or something hands-on, that's what we do on Friday. If we want to go somewhere for a field trip or activity, we do that on Friday. So that is our personal schedule for our family, for our homeschooling. Sorry, I'll get these allergies, I'm so over them. Okay, so now we've talked about designing a homeschool routine. Let's move on to number 2. Selecting and adapting curriculum to fit your family. So most importantly is you want to remember your child's learning style. And that, again, that is one of the greatest things about homeschool. In public school, it's very much, they have to apply teaching and learning to the overall, what's going to fit the most kids, right? And what's going to apply and be like, they're teaching to the numbers, basically, which is great. If a child falls within those numbers, they're going to get it, and it's going to be what they need. But then you have those outliers, that it's like the square peg, round hole. Is that how it is? Or round peg, square hole? Anyhow, where they don't fit that teaching style. Okay, so one of my kids is very much that way. He fell into that outlier student that where he struggled with traditional school. And it's because he's very hands-on. You can teach him and tell him till you're blue in the face, and he's not going to get it. He's not going to understand it. But if you put it in his hands and show him, physically, he gets to experience it, he learns fantastic, and he's super smart, and he's really good with stuff like that. And so, and then I have one of my boys is book smart. He is one that he will read, and he can learn it just by reading stuff, and he's very book smart. So finding what your child's learning style, there's no bad or wrong learning style. It's just different. So, and in your own family, you might have kids that, your siblings, they're kids that learn different ways, and that's okay. It's okay. But the thing is, when you're homeschooling, you can find curriculums that work with that. If they are a hands-on learner, get some of those subscription boxes that they can do stuff hands-on. There's so many resources out there that I'll share some too, that you can have to support you in lessons and ways to learn stuff. There's audio learning and visual learning, and there's hands-on learning. And so, does your child learn more from watching the videos or interacting with an app, or are they listening and just being told, or reading in a book? What is their learning style? And once you understand that, then you can start to build your curriculum, and you can take any curriculum and adapt it to their learning styles. So flexibility, again, you have all that flexibility. It's key. That is the beauty of homeschool, is so much flexibility. Taking that curriculum and adapting it and saying, okay, this science lesson is on the water cycle, and this child can learn it from doing this workbook that shows, and they read and they answer questions. This child's going to need an object lesson. They need something hands-on. They need to experience it. And that's fine too. And this child's going to learn better by watching a video that explains it, and it's audio and visual. So, and that's what's awesome about it. You can adapt it to all their learning styles. What is your teaching style, right? That plays a significant role in your curriculum. So you may want something very structured with detailed lesson plans that's like, okay, this is what we're teaching and yada yada, and it's everything's laid out for you. Or you might want a more child-led approach of, hey, we're going to learn about this, or what would you like to learn? Which animal would you like to learn about today? And, giving them some options and letting them take it from there. Or you might want, hey, you know what? I just want to know the topics. You just, something that's laid out for me, a weekly topic or a daily topic, and I will take it from there. I'm going to Pinterest it up and Google, and I'm going to find some stuff, and we're going to do it our way. That's great. Whatever your teaching style is, that you can make it work. Also, a well-rounded curriculum often incorporates diverse learning resources. So consider using a mixture of textbooks, online resources, educational games, field trips, hands-on activities. All those things are going to provide just that well-balanced variety. And so it's going to help keep things engaging, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. You get to customize it for your kids. And it just also depends on what your educational goals and values are, and things like that. And you can always adjust it and adapt it. Find if something's working, or if it's not working, how can you adjust it? What changes can you make? Maybe your kid's not really enjoying math. How can you make it more fun? Are you teaching to their learning styles? You can always make these adjustments to better suit their learning journey. So for our family, the curriculums that we use, when it comes to math, one of my absolute favorites is the Sylvan math workbook. And a lot of actually public schools use these same workbooks. So it's the same workbook my kids would get in public school. You can get them off Amazon. They're anywhere between like $10 and $20 per grade. The down part is they only do it kindergarten through 5th grade. But they're thick books, and they're all color pages. They have all these amazing ways of teaching these math lessons, and they have some games. There's some pages they cut out, and they cut out shapes or whatever things that they use on multiple, and they use them multiple places in the book. So make sure you put those pieces back in a Ziploc bag. We learned that the hard way. Excuse me. So if they do cut something out to use for a lesson, just save it in a Ziploc bag. The Sylvan, we really, really loved those. And for what you get, where every page is full of color and it's really easy to understand, and these lessons, kindergarten through 5th grade, that is my absolute favorite. Now that Addie is in 6th grade, I was so disappointed to learn that there's no Sylvan book for her grade, as she's going into harder, more complicated math and pre-algebra and stuff like that. So for her, that's when I found, we had used other subjects from this book, but it's called 180 Days of, and then Science, 180 Days of Math, 180 Days of Language Arts. This book series I've been very impressed with it. So the downside is, excuse me, the math one, the only downside is the 180 Days of Math. It's a workbook, but it's not necessarily lessons. So luckily, we've been lucky enough that we've been able to use those workbooks, and if there's questions, if it's something she can't figure out, we Google it, or we find other ways. We've watched YouTube videos on lessons, like when she was learning about polygons and all that stuff. You Google it, and you can find some great little videos on YouTube and things like that help with the lesson part of it. Otherwise, the 180 Days of Math, basically it's broke down to weeks. So they have, week one, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, week 2, day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, So there's a page for each day. And so, excuse me, that's what we gave the girls the option. We're like, do you want to do 1 page a day? But then that means you're doing math on Friday. Or if you do all your math on Monday and we do these subjects, we can have Friday off school. And that was kind of a no-brainer, when they realized, hey, this won't take us that long. And rather than, because for Addie doesn't care for math. Bella doesn't mind it. She's really good at math. I mean, Addie's good at math too. It's just not her favorite subject. And I was like, would you rather do something that's not your favorite every single day? Or would you rather get it over with 1 day for the whole week? And, so we went that way. So for language arts and social studies, there's a lot of great resources out there. They do have the 180 days of language arts, 180 days of social studies, same things. Now we haven't used those. I think I have them, but we haven't used them because we have other resources. So I'm not sure if those are just, I imagine they're similar to the science, which we have used. But so you can look into those. What we use for language arts and social studies is Little Passports. I've been so impressed. We do the Little Passports USA and Little Passports World subscription boxes. Now there are other subscription boxes. I'm kind of on the fence. Some of them look, they'd probably be great for younger kids, but the Little Passports World is so awesome. That one, it does, and this is a subscription. So, and if you check like Black Friday, Cyber Sunday, or not Cyber Sunday, Cyber Monday, Black Friday, things like that, they usually have some great deals, and you can get your year subscription, and it just sends you one package every month. So we do that. We've actually done their whole program for the world and the States. So I think our last packages were done. So we get them like this summer will be our last ones. And then we've done them all. But excuse me. Little Passports World, they send a different country each month. And the kids, they get, and there's a couple, you can get like the nice box or the standard box. We get the nice one because it's only a couple dollars more and it comes with nicer stuff. But it'll come with some activities, a book about the country. It comes with a coin that talks about the country. There's like a little brochure. There's just so much, and they learn all about this one country. And there's some art. There's usually like an art activity. There's a little like a keepsake, like a little knick-knack, tchotchke, whatever you want to call it. It's like keychain or something like that that represents the country. And that's really cool. Now for Little Passport State, it's just a workbook, but it does 2 states every single month. But the workbook's awesome. It's full color, and because I have 2 girls, what I do is we get the workbook, and I just copy with my copy machine. I copy the workbook pages on it so that they can each have those pages to fill out without having to write in the actual book itself. And it does 2 states, and same thing. It's got, the workbook has all these activities from excuse me, games and educational stuff. And it's always got a recipe, which is fun to see the recipe for that state. And it's really cool. They've learned a lot from just those 2. So we usually do, each week we open a Little Passports box, either states or world, or we do the other subscription box we really have loved is Mysteries in Time. And Mysteries in Time actually covers language arts, social studies, and history. And those are the best. I love, love, love Mysteries in Time. The only thing I'm sad about is they only made 12 of them. So you get a 1-year subscription and you've got all that they have. I really wish they would come out and do more because those are so well done. It's actually, the company is based out of the United Kingdom. And but you can order them through Amazon. You can order them through the company's website, but then you have the currency exchange and it's kind of wonky. So I just did mine through Amazon. Those are so neat. They have this workbook that it's like it's a full page brochure, and it's got all these, it's like a magazine almost on this time period. And then it's got like a little quiz at the end. So with my girls, when they did that, I would have them study it, and then I'd give them the quiz, and each answer they got right, they got like a treat or a dime or, something fun, that it was a fun reward. Excuse me. They also had, they usually have like a craft or activity. They have, what else there's a book. There's an actual chapter book for them to read this story and adventure for that time period. It's a great, anyhow, Mysteries in Time. I love, love, love that. Some of the other things we've done in the past, when Bella was learning how to read, let me drink some more hot chocolate here. There we go. When Bella was learning how to read, we did Hooked on Phonics, and that was amazing. We did that her kindergarten year, and we got the one where they send you the books in the mail plus the app, and it was worth it. I think it was like $10 for one or $15 a month for two, and it was totally worth it. So they would send every month a workbook and like for them to read and write in. And then they would send 2 storybooks, and the storybooks went along. So they were doing different sight words each month. And she did that her kindergarten year. She went from not knowing how to read or write at all to, by the end of her kindergarten year, she was at the end of a 2nd grade reading level. So she was going into 1st grade at the beginning of a 3rd grade level, if that makes sense. She was like 2 grades ahead because of Hooked on Phonics. So I'm definitely sold on that program. Absolutely. If you have a young reader, someone, or kindergarten, preschool, or even 1st or 2nd grade, if they're struggling with reading, get the Hooked on Phonics system. It was amazing. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me. There's also a lot of workbooks out there, like I said, like that 180 days that are out there available. Science, we use the 180 days science. It's 180 days of science, and then they have a separate one that's 180 days of science experiments or something like that, something with the experiments. So we use both of those. That's similar to their other system. Now the science one, I do like that. It unlike the math one where the math is just a workbook, the science one, it's in the same format where it's like week 1, day 1, day 2, all that. And so it's in that format, but it actually has the lessons, and it has some pictures and examples, and it has a paragraph that they read about something, and then they answer questions based on that paragraph. So it's awesome because it covers the science, it covers their language arts as well, because it's their reading comprehension and all that. When it comes to art is super easy. We do games. We do some art making kits. You can find those. They're so easy to come by. You can do your own art. We'll do projects, create stuff, paint stuff, things like that. For PE, my girls are in, we've done different classes for their weekly PE. And physical activity is not something that we've had to worry about. Our kids are pretty active, and they're outside on the farm here a lot. But we do have them for social outlets as well as physical outlets. We've had them in gymnastics, dance, tap, ballet, tumbling, different physical class. So like this year they're in ballet, tap, and tumbling. And so that gets their PE each week. And then for history is one of my favorite subjects, so I love that. We've gotten some great books from Scholastic. You can order Scholastic books online. And also, we've done the History Channel. We're big on documentaries at our house, so we watch a lot of documentaries. Discovery Plus has a lot of great shows. The Mysteries in Time, that kind of covers the history stuff as well. There's some of the books that are my favorite on Amazon are the publisher is DK, D as in dog, well, DK like Donkey Kong, I guess, but DK Books, or there's one that's called, I think, Eyewitness is the other one. Those, whenever I see a book by that publisher, I'm usually going to like it. So I really do like that. One other one, sorry, going back to science, that we found this year that I absolutely love. It's called The Science of Cooking, and it is the coolest book ever. Oh my goodness, get that book. Even as an adult, I love it. It's just so well done. And I went through, once we found that book, I actually went through and I'm like, let's see what other books the same author has done. And the author has done the Science of Cooking. They did The Science of Spice, The Science of Gardening, and The Science of Daily Habits. So those are their 4 books they've done. And I ended up buying all their books because they were so well done, and I really am impressed with them. The Science of Gardening, we use that for our home ec stuff. So home ec, when it comes to that class, I put together my own binder. Literally, all I did was I figured the topics and the things that I wanted to teach the girls for home economics and sewing, cooking, canning, budgeting, whatever, things like that. And I went on Pinterest and I just printed off some of these ideas. And then I made my own binder, which we use as our own curriculum. So that has been great. And actually, I will probably create a home economics curriculum for next year. If you go to my blog, A2Z4Moms.com, on there I currently have some curriculums that I've developed. One is entrepreneurship for kids, and I just, as my kids are doing these homeschool stuff, I'm doing them anyway. If there's one I haven't found a good curriculum for, I created one, and so I put these curriculums on my blog for sale for other parents who may be looking for the same thing. So we have a food storage and preparedness curriculum. We have an entrepreneurship curriculum. I think and then there's a raising superheroes curriculum. That's on like attitudes and perception and teaching them the difference between a victim, villain, and a hero. Okay, so there's shameless plug there. There's some awesome curriculums on there if you're looking for anything like that. When it comes to music, I really am impressed with the Simply Piano app. That is really impressive. My daughter's learned so much, and we hear her playing the piano, and you can actually make out what the song is from the other room. So that's always impressive. Languages, the Duolingo app is one of the best for learning languages, and that's for any age, even adults. It's a neat app. So Duolingo. And then some general apps that we use for general education things are Adventure Academy. Adventure Academy is a fantastic app. It's like an online game where they create their own avatar, but they go and they do these activities, and they can play with other kids from all around the world. And you can have different parental control settings, so don't freak out about that. You can have it where they can only talk to people they're friends with on there, and you approve their friends and whatnot. But it's super fun because on the game, they do these little, what are they called? Not missions. They do these missions. And the mission, everything's educational. So, and it's all, there's science. It basically, it covers every different topic you can think of. So science, math, art, language, all these different ones. And they do, so if they're short one week, and you can say, okay, go on Adventure Academy and do a science mission. And they can go do that. And they can play with their friends. My daughters have some friends that are their same age that do the app, and so it's fun because they can all get on and they do these missions together, and they really love Adventure Academy is what it's called. Khan Academy Kids, that's another fun educational app. Another one of our favorites was Reading Eggs and Math Seeds. However, it only goes up to, I think, 5th grade, and I did recently hear that they were putting some questionable books in there that I necessarily wouldn't want my children to read or be exposed to. But I mean, my kids, well, at least Addie had outgrown it, and they weren't using that app as much, so we canceled ours. But Reading Eggs and Math Seeds, that was a really good app for learning the reading skills and especially the math ones. Like I said, up to 5th grade. Just kind of be cautious. They have a book library in there, and apparently there was some books with very liberal agendas. We'll just leave it at that. And so things that I don't feel like little kids should be exposed to, and so yeah. ABC Mouse is a great one for that's more preschool, kindergarten. Rosie Mosey is ROSIMOSI. That goes from preschool up to 6th grade general, but then they do have a 7th grade math. And that's a learning app and a fun game. It's their game learning apps. Kids Academy is preschool and kindergarten, and that's a super cute app. Super, super cute, but it's only preschool and kindergarten. So my kids long outgrew it, but it was a cute app when they had it. All right, that's what we use. Okay, Whew, let's keep moving along. So we've talked about designing a homeschool routine. Number 2, selecting and adapting curriculum to fit your family. Now let's go on to number 3, activities and adventures for learning. So some of the things that you can do, now keep in mind, I think that's one of the things that overwhelms people when they're thinking about homeschooling is, I don't know what I would do. How are they going to learn all this? Well, we just went over the curriculum options and there's so much more than even I went over. But there's so many activities and adventures you can take your kids on to learn and apply some of these stuff. It's hands-on learning and it's awesome. So nature exploration and outdoor learning. So you can take your learning outdoors, explore nature, do scavenger hunts, identify plants and animals, animal tracks, hands-on activities, collect leaves, study rocks, do nature walks, hiking, outdoor observation, provide rich opportunities for science and environmental education. Sometimes just going there gives your kids, they get questions. They'll be like, well, how does a tree grow so big? That's a great idea. Let's write down some of these questions, and then you come home and you read and you research. Let's watch them. Let's put that question into YouTube and see if we can find out. Let's put these questions in Google, but just watch some of the questions because you just never know some of them. But those outdoor activities and little trips and stuff, take the opportunity when your child asks a question. Take that opportunity and expand on it and help them learn and help them explore it and be excited to learn with them. Educational field trips, museums, science centers, historical sites, botanical gardens, even local businesses. You can tour. There's a place here called Sub-Zero Ice Cream where I live, and they make ice cream using nitrogen, liquid nitrogen. And so we took our girls there one time, and we're like, okay, we're gonna go get ice cream, and they're all excited, and they go, and it was such a cool experience for them because we were talking about, we're like, okay, so this is how they do it. They, we are going to pick here what flavors and ingredients we want. We let them pick whatever they wanted. And then we're like, okay, now watch. And they watched them, and it was just this liquid. And they're like, that's not ice cream. I said, yeah, but watch what they're going to do. And then they pour the liquid nitrogen, and they mix it all up. And then, voila, it's ice cream. And so it was so cool. So that started, and as we sat there and ate our ice cream, we started talking about how it did that and what you can do, other things that you could freeze in liquid nitrogen and then what would you do with them? And it became a whole lesson, but it was fun. They got ice cream. They weren't complaining, and they learned. And that's the beauty of it. You can take these experiences and you can teach them in a fun way that they're going to learn. I mean, they weren't complaining about going to get ice cream, and they didn't even realize they were learning. As we were doing all this stuff, they're learning in a fun way that it didn't feel like learning. It wasn't a punishment. It was exciting, and it was fun, and it was interesting, and it was cool. Excuse me. Some hands-on science experiments. So even that would be a hands-on. Obviously, most people don't have liquid nitrogen. We don't in our house. But if you can find some similar experiences like that, some hands-on science stuff, you could do Jell-O. You can get Jell-O and talk about how we're going to make Jell-O, and this is liquid, but when it cools, it's going to be Jell-O, and hands-on, something fun like that, some different. One thing my high schooler is doing right now for his science project is and of course he's going way in depth because he can, and that's how he is, but he's making cookies, and he's altering, he's got a control recipe, and he's altering the recipe slightly with different batches. So he's like doubling the sugar or doing half as much sugar, and he's doing everything, all the other ingredients are the same, and his baking time is the exact same for every recipe, and he's each batch of cookies that comes out, he's seeing what the difference is, and I mean, like, he's doing detail. He's got special tools that measures the snap and the bend and the weight and all that. He's going way in depth, but you don't have to do that. But even just cooking a couple recipes, I did that when I was that was actually my 5th grade science project. I made cookies, and I did a normal batch, and then I did a batch with no baking soda, and then I did a batch with no salt. And you could taste the different, like, what those ingredients did, and it helps. I mean, it becomes measurements, you're doing your math. It becomes home economics, learning how to cook. It becomes science as they're learning the reactions of this stuff. So, excuse me. Literature, the other one, literature-based activities. So reading a book. I have a friend right now who's doing a Harry Potter curriculum, and it's all on, so they're reading the books, and then they're doing these activities, and she got this curriculum online, and she loves it. So you can do stuff like that. Read a book, even, Matilda or any, there's so many good books out there for kids. And read a book. And Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I still remember in 3rd grade reading Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and then watching the movie. And you have that is the activity we got. And then we were able to bring candy from home. And my teacher was like, let's wait until they go into the chocolate factory before we open our candy. And then I think she couldn't wait that long. So when he got his candy bar, we got to open ours. So we were open ours with him at the same time. But, some of those fun things you can do, a book and a movie, or, read the book and do some activities. Also, you got project-based learning. So they work on basically real-world projects. So they choose a topic of interest, and they can research it, plan it, execute it. So maybe it's something, hey, they want to have chickens. Okay, well, we got to build a chicken coop. We got to learn about this before we do it. They want to do a garden. Okay, well, let's figure out what things do we want to grow? How often are we going to have to water it? Let them pick some of these real life applications, whether it's budgeting and finances, or, like I said, garden or cooking or building something. Maybe they want to learn how to build something, and help them step by step. Let them do the research. So as far as what we've done, like I've shared with the Sub-Zero, we do a lot of hands-on stuff because that's just our life. We're always doing crafts projects. We have our garden. We have chickens. We got ducks. We've done a greenhouse. We do a lot of canning. We're always doing stuff. So we just apply life situations, and we always take those teaching opportunities to apply them. So there's some activities and adventures for learning. All right. Pros and cons, last but not least. So we talked about designing a homeschool routine. Number 2, selecting and adapting curriculum to fit your family. Number 3, activities and adventures for learning. Now we're going to talk about pros and cons of homeschool. So here's what I'm going to do. Because in my mind, obviously I'm biased because I homeschool. But I have had 4 children go through public school and now 2 that are homeschooling. So I'm an easy sell that way. I'm going to tell you the cons. These are when I did a search, these are the top cons to homeschooling. And I'm going to tell you why they're not cons and how you can work around them. So if I can keep my voice, boy. So number 1, time and commitment. So the con to homeschooling, it demands significant time commitment from parents who act as both educators and caregivers, potentially impacting work and personal time. Okay, I'm going to put a kibosh on that right now. Yes, it does involve some time when you're planning. To me, I found when applying some of these things like a routine and a good curriculum, especially your routine, it takes less time to be organized and planned than not. So really, and if you think about it, I remember years ago, one of my kids, when he was in public school, he went through public school the whole time, but he was in maybe 3rd grade. And I remember the teacher would send home every single day. It was like 2 pages of math homework, and it was a worksheet with 2 pages of math. And then occasionally he would have like another 1 or 2 pages of another worksheet of something they were doing. And then she wanted me to read with him for 1 hour a day. And I was like, okay, so here's my thing. This is what and we wouldn't do. I would have him do his math homework, and that's it. And we did a parent-teacher conference, and she kind of got on my case a little bit about, like, you're not doing his homework. And this is what I told her. I said, okay, let's think about this. We get up at 7 a.m. He has to, yeah, I get up at 7 o'clock or whatever. We get up at 7 a.m. He has to be to school by 8:45, which means he has to leave my house at about 8:30. So that means we have from 7 to 8:30 to do our morning routine, eat breakfast, get dressed, whatever, and get out the door. Then school gets out at 3:30. He gets home about 4 o'clock because, we lived just a few blocks from the school, but kids take their time. So I'm like, he gets home at 4 o'clock. Kids in our house go to bed, especially when they were in school and younger. They go to bed at 7. So we have from 4 to 7 p.m. to do dinner, chores, family time, and any playing with friends. And I was like, we have 3 hours in the evening and an hour and a half in the morning. And I was like, I have 4.5 hours a day with my child. You don't get to dictate what I do with that time. You don't get to tell me what I get to do with the 4.5 hours a day I get with my child, because he's in your class from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. and there's no excuse for him to come home with more schoolwork to do. There's no excuse for him not to have his schoolwork done in 6.5 hours. So, and that kind of shut her up pretty quick, because I don't think she ever really stopped and broke it down and thought of it, because shortly after that she stopped sending home homework. And I don't know if she did that for all the kids or just us, and I didn't mind the math, but it was a wake-up call, I think, for her. And I was like, no, you literally spend more time during the week. You spend more time with him than I do. So you don't get to tell me what I do with the time I spend with my child. That was one of my biggest pet peeves with public school. So, I mean, if you're taking that, the time and commitment, if I was doing all that and side by side with my child with what his teacher was sending home every day, then an hour and a half of my time every day, I spend way less than that homeschooling right now. Way less. I mean, there's prep work and things that go into it at the first of the year, just organizing and getting everything done, but it's really not that much. And it's really not that hard. You get the right curriculums and things, and so there's so many resources out there that a lot of stuff is done for you. So that's my rebuttal to that con there. That's why I'm putting a kibosh on that. Okay, so the next one is limited socialization opportunities. The con, they're saying homeschoolers have fewer opportunities for daily social interaction with peers, requiring intentional efforts to ensure socialization. Yes and no. So, I mean, I understand what they're saying. That's why we put our girls in, that's why they have their dance classes and things, and they're in these classes with other kids. They get their socialization. Also, we live in a neighborhood with a decent amount of kids that they have lots of friends in the neighborhood that they play with. So I'm really not worried about their social skills. They have, and just because I have a lot of friends that we get together and they have their kids, my kids are friends with their kids. My girls actually have a lot of friends, and so I'm not worried about their socialization at all. If you're worried about that, that's where there's tons of co-ops. Even in the area I live, there's like 3 or 4 homeschooling co-ops and resources that you can get together. They do activities. One meets every single Friday. They do a group activity. And, excuse me, there's all sorts of co-ops and resources out there that you can get together with other homeschoolers, or get your kids involved. Get them involved in soccer. Get them playing a sport. Get them involved in dance. Get them, involved in social, like musical theater or children's theater, something like that. Those, you can find those resources so easy. And if anything, my kids have had a lot less drama than they would have if they had in public schools. So honestly, I feel like because the social interactions that my girls do have, they're ones that I choose, and so they tend to be a lot more positive than bullying and negative things they could be exposed to. And not that I'm trying to keep them naive and protected from the world, but it is kind of nice as a parent to be able to control the influences that your kids are around. So that would be the as far as the limited social opportunities. Okay, so now potential for burnout was the next one. Again, yes, I can see this, and honestly, I was worried about that for me, that I was not going to have experience or get burnout. But again, when you are organized and have a good routine, when you have a good routine, if you're feeling burnout, take a little bit off your plate. If you're feeling like you're just bored with it, change it up a little bit. You have the flexibility doing homeschool. Excuse me. The next one is resource availability. Homeschooling may require financial investments in educational materials, resources, and activities depending on the chosen approach. Absolutely, and I will agree with that, but I'm also going to say the positive of that, we're going to spin that in a positive way. There are a lot of resources out there that are free, for one. But also, how many times, I can't even tell you, my kids in public school came home and it was like, oh, we're doing a fundraiser for blah, blah, blah. Or they were like, oh, I need $20 for this blah, 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 this field trip or whatever. And it was stuff that is like, really? I could care less if my kids were involved in that or not. But because it was like the whole class is doing it, then you're like, all right, well, fine, you know. When you're homeschooling, you don't have that. You spend money on what you want, on what you value, and what aligns with your curriculum and your schedule. And so if you do a program such as, our girls, they're homeschooled through, it's called My Tech High. So through that program, we actually get reimbursed for school-related expenses up to a certain amount. We have like a class allowance that we can spend a certain amount. And honestly, it's been fantastic because we've been able to purchase curriculums and school like projects like a metal detector, or I mean just so many different, we haven't got, but you can get like 3D printer, or I can get toner for my copy machine. I mean I could, if I didn't have a copy machine, I could have bought one. We got them iPads that they are dedicated school iPads, and Chromebooks that they're dedicated for school. And so they do their schoolwork on those. Those were all reimbursed through this homeschool program. I'm really excited. Next year, my state, I'm in Utah, and they're doing it's called a one-size-fits-all education for all, something like that. Basically, they're taking, like similar to what My Tech High does with the reimbursement for homeschoolers, they're doing it for anyone. So we won't have to go through My Tech High to get reimbursement, and we can actually get more through My Tech High. The absolute most that we can get reimbursed for is $2,000 a school year. We usually, depending on what classes you're doing and how you're doing it, our girls usually get $1,700 each per school year. And you might be like, well, that's not that much or whatever. Trust me, especially after doing it for a few years, it gets hard to spend. You're like, what are we going to get? Like, how are we going to use all that funds? The Education Fits All is going to be an $8,000 budget. So that's exciting, but there's a little bit different requirements and stuff. So, but I am excited because it sounds like they'll reimburse for some things that My Tech High won't. So it'll be really exciting to see what happens with that. As more people are doing homeschooling, there's more and more getting available. So really, resource availability, I don't think that's even a con. That's not, it doesn't, that sounds like an excuse more than anything, and it's not. So the next one would be lack of specialized instruction. Parents may face challenges providing specialized instruction in certain subjects, especially as children progress to higher grade levels. And I can understand that, especially like Addie's in 6th grade and she's starting to get where some of the math, I'm like, she'll ask me a question and me and my husband will be like, well, we know the answer, but how do you teach her how you got that answer? And so I totally get that concern. But at the same time, There are a lot of resources out there. There's so many tutoring programs, and YouTube can be your best friend. There's a lot of resources out there. So and you can always find in your local area, get them in some classes for, even if it's like, okay, I'm horrible at English, and so we're going to do this for English because I'm no help and I can't really teach something I'm horrible at. And that's okay. So the next one, assessment and documentation. Homeschoolers may need to navigate assessment and documentation requirements, including standardized testing and record keeping, depending on local regulations. This depends on your local area and if you care about that stuff. For me, this is hard. It's tricky because how can I say this without being a jerk? If I just feel like there's basic things that kids should learn, right? There's some basic skills they need to have to function in the real world. And in the school system, they don't learn about, in public system, they don't learn about taxes. They don't learn about, budgeting. Heck, even a lot of the schools have taken out home ec and homeschools. But yet they're learning all these other things. They're not learning about the Constitution. They're not learning, so many kids, they're really not learning valuable life skills. And in my opinion, this is Jody's opinion. My opinion, I would much rather my kids learn some valuable life skills to help them be successful than worrying about all the extra fluff stuff. Does that make sense? So I don't worry so much about the assessment, and the documentation's easy, especially if you go through a program like My Tech High, because we have to submit weekly learning logs. And really, for our family, we always do way more than My Tech High even requires. So we're good with that. And so some basic documentation. And if you use any of the apps, a lot of the educational apps will track your child's progress. That works as documentation. You could print that off at the end of the year and show their progress. If you're really, really worried about making sure they're progressing, and that's fine to make sure that they're learning and that they're at or close to the level they should be, there are online tests that you can have them do. You can schedule some through your local school system and things like that. Just don't let them pressure or bully you into making you think you're not doing amazing stuff, because your kid could be an amazing chef and just not good at writing or spelling. But that's okay. Everybody, again, that's why you're doing homeschool, is because you're catering to your child's gifts and giving them a foundation of all things. But it's okay for them to specialize in their talents as well. And last is limited extracurricular offerings. Access to extracurricular activities, sports, and specialized programs may be limited compared to traditional school settings. And I'm just going to call BS on that, because there's so many activities out there, especially these days. There's and we're talking, they don't have to be in school to participate in extracurricular activities. There's a lot, from soccer, t-ball, swimming. There's so many, dance, gymnastics. There's so many things out there. Just do a search, find out what your child's interested. And with my kids, I have them try different things so they get exposed. They can find what their interests are, because they may not realize, like with my girls, we started them in gymnastics because it was healthy and they had fun and they loved it. And we realized one of my daughters Addie is very graceful and stuff, and we're like, she would do so good in ballet. Bella is more of, she walks with a bounce in her step, and she plops when she sits and all that. And we're like, oh, tap is for her. And so we put them in the classes together, and sure enough, Addie loves ballet and Bella loves tap. And it's so awesome to see them grow and develop in the ways that as they've experienced different things. And so you can do that. You can do that with homeschool. Okay, so now the pros. So many pros. Customizing their learning. I've talked about a lot of these pros just throughout this podcast. And I know this podcast is getting way longer than it normally would be, so I'm going to try to wrap it up here. so many, personalizing, tailoring it to their learning experiences, adapting to their learning style, finding what their interests are and their pace, if they're a fast learner or a slow learner. The schedule, your flexible schedule for homeschooling and for just every day, every week, the month, all that. Closer family bonds. So you're spending a lot of time together. And my girls they're each other's best friend. They have a lot of friends, but they get along amazing. And because they're doing everything together. It's a very close-knit, supportive learning environment. Individualized attention. Your kids are getting way more attention when it's one-on-one, and you're building that bond as their parent with them. And it's fun to get to know your kids and their thought process, and it's entertaining. So diverse learning experiences. Again, you are deciding what your kids are exposed to and what they're learning, and you can add in whatever. Like I said, we do way more than our My Tech High requires. My Tech High only requires, I think, 5 classes a year. And I purposely do 2 different classes for my girls. They 2 of their classes are different so that we can do more classes because we love it and we're always learning. And we're doing way more than what's traditionally required, but I don't care. We're having fun with it. As long as you're not feeling overwhelmed and all that, they're learning everything that they need to and more. They can stop and explore. If they have a certain passion or idea, they can focus on that for as long as they want and then move on to something else. You're getting to avoid a lot of negative influences, the bullying and things at school, or just, there's a lot of things, especially as Addie was going into middle school, the mean girls, the swearing, the immodesty, just so many things that happen in middle school that I'm so grateful for that she's not exposed to. And she knows she has still friends at church in the neighborhood and things like that. She's not oblivious, but she doesn't have to be surrounded by it all the time either. Your curriculum, again, that just kind of repeats educational philosophy, values, the child's interests, all that's customizable. So many pros. I absolutely love it. And like I said, every time there's something in the news or locally or nationally that happens in schools, I'm so grateful that we homeschool, and I don't see my girls ever going back to public school. So I hope that was helpful. If you're considering homeschool, or if you're struggling with homeschool, or just need a little bit of help and assistance, today we've talked about designing a homeschool routine, selecting and adapting curriculum to fit your family, number 3, activities and adventures for learning, and number 4, pros and cons of homeschooling, which really, it's all pros. It's all pros to homeschooling, because in my mind, there is no cons. A con is just an excuse, and so you can have an excuse or you can have a solution. So I hope that helps. As always, if you have any questions or need help, remember we have our Parenting Perspectives podcast on Thursday, so I'm happy to answer any of your parenting questions, things like that. You can email me, podcast@a2z4moms.com. And remember our weekly lineup: Motivational Monday, Teaching Tuesday, Whip It Wednesday, Parenting Perspective Thursday, Food Storage Friday, and Money Magic for Moms on Saturday. So tomorrow we'll be talking about some cooking stuff, cooking and recipe related items. So tune in tomorrow. You can find this podcast on all the major podcast platforms. As well, if you like to see a video and a visual of my facial expressions and hand gestures, you can watch the podcast on my YouTube channel, A2Z for Moms Like Me. And you can also follow me on TikTok, A2Z for Moms Like Me. It's all spelled out, no numbers or weird things like that. And you can also listen to the podcast on my website, a2z4moms.com. And yeah, so thanks for tuning in. Oh, and I wanted to also say, on my blog, a2zformoms.com, I do have specific homeschooling tabs. So if you go to that site, you can click on the homeschool tab and see some of these resources and links that I have linked there. There's some affiliate links in there, and I greatly appreciate if you click on the affiliate link and support me that way. It doesn't make me a ton of money, but every little bit helps, right? So there's a lot of resources on there, and I'll continue to share more as we go, as well as my curriculums. Oh, and by the way, all digital content, which would include my curriculums, are on sale 70% off. And that sale ends today with, oh, no, I'm sorry. That sale ends at the end of the month, at the end of November, 70% off. Just use the code Black Friday, all one word, no spaces, and all digital content on there. My books that I've written, my curriculums, that kind of stuff is all 70% off until the end of November. So go check it out, a2zformoms.com, and use that coupon code Black Friday.